This is Word on the Reef, where marine science meets adventure. Join Tanya Murphy and Brett Goodban as we plunge into the wonders of the Great Barrier Reef and explore the mysteries beneath the waves. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Word on the Reef. I'm your host, diver and marine conservationist, Tanya Murphy. And joining me, as always, is my co-host, Cairns Aquarium's marine educator and fish whisperer, Brett Goodban.
Good morning. We're back.
We are back. Now, many listeners may not have noticed that we were away for 3 weeks because we prepared pre-recorded shows, which we're still playing throughout the last few weeks. I hope you enjoyed them. But I was away on holidays, lots of incredible diving in Indonesia, not to brag, but went to some of the most incredible diving locations in the world, other than the Great Barrier Reef, of course, which is very close to our heart. But other than that, some of the greatest diving locations in the world, including Nusa Penida, Ahmed, and also the Komodo Islands.
Super jealous. Photos are incredible.
Yeah, so I think we'll do a dedicated episode soon to talk about those Indonesian reefs and some of the things I learned. And I did interview some local Indonesians and some of the things they're doing over there. So that'll be a topic coming up soon. But we already have other topics booked in for today, which I'm really excited about.
Yes, we do.
So, Brett, how much do you know about mangrove forests?
Where do I start? Well, the reef wouldn't exist without it. She's a giant carbon sink, massive nursery, filter. I mean, she's very important.
Yes, you probably know more about mangroves than the average person, though. There's probably a lot of people out there who don't realise just how important mangroves are, and that's why I'm excited to be talking about them today. A lot of people, when they think of the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park, they probably think of coral, but today we're going to be learning about mangroves, which are a very important part of the marine park. Joining us in the studio today is mangrove aficionado and expert Shannon Bredeson. She's project manager at the Cairns and Far North Environment Centre, CAFNEC for short. Good morning, Shannon. Welcome to Word on the Reef.
Morning. Thanks for having me.
Morning, Shannon. Welcome to our show.
Thank you.
Great to have you on the show.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
But before we dive into all things mangrovey, first a chat about the birds and the bees.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I think all our listeners are old enough for this chat.
Yes.
It is springtime. Spring has sprung, and it was the full moon just a couple of nights ago.
Yeah,
so
it was.
Do you know what that means?
The world's biggest dating event underwater's coming up.
It is baby making time on the Great Barrier Reef. That's right, coral spawning, the world's largest synchronised reproduction event. So I want everyone to close your eyes and picture this. It's nighttime, you're diving on the Great Barrier Reef, you're shining your flashlight over a beautiful coral garden, and suddenly every single coral polyp starts to release tiny little pinkish orange balls into the water, which float slowly up towards the surface like billions of miniature balloons being released. It's like you're in a snow globe that's been shaken up. You are in the midst of one of the world's greatest spectacles. On the same night or over a couple of nights just after the full moon in spring, billions of corals will release their tiny egg and sperm packages into the water where they mix together and fertilise and create new tiny baby coral larvae.
Oh, little babies.
So cute.
Yeah, you can hear a bit of Barry White going on under there too.
Yes, so it's also a huge Thanksgiving feast for the other marine animals who will be zooming around, gorging themselves on the spawn, which is one of the reasons why they have to make so many of them. But some of the baby corals will survive this ordeal and find a hard surface like a rock or a dead coral to land upon and start growing into a new beautiful coral colony. And that's why we know the reef has this amazing, hope-giving power to regenerate after stress events. However, corals grow very slowly and the young coral recruits need the right conditions to be able to survive. So after 6 mass bleaching events in just 9 years, these tiny babies might need a bit of a helping hand. So here to explain more is Dr Katie Chartrand, Senior Research Fellow at James Cook University's Tropwater. Good morning, Dr Chartrand. Welcome to Word on the Reef.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Morning, Doc.
Great to have you on the show. Go. I understand you have many tanks full of corals at your Tropwater research facility. How are the corals looking? Do they look ready for parenthood? Are they ready to pop?
We sure do. We collected some colonies just offshore here in Irukandji country at Pixie Reef for part of our project called Spawning School, and we've got 8 beautiful colonies that we checked. They are ripe and ready with bright pink eggs sitting inside, ready to go over the next few nights.
Oh, that's so exciting.
Yeah.
Wow, it's an absolute miracle of nature that all these billions of corals across thousands of kilometres of the Great Barrier Reef all manage to sync up the timing of their spawning. How do they do it? Do they call each other up on their shell phones and say, hey, let's all meet up tomorrow night at 12 o'clock and
The
make
Reef
babies?
Gazette.
Yeah, it is a phenomenal experience, evolved over millions of years. There's still things about this whole event that we don't fully understand. We know in the springtime, as you mentioned, the full moon is a big trigger. So building up to that full moon, corals have been making those egg and sperm bundles that are sitting inside those polyps really for about 9 months. So this is the culmination of a lot of hard work and energy they've put into that. And the final real push over the last month is that sudden warming that we really get around October period, together with, triggers like the light and the tide that all culminate to tell these corals, each species ever so slightly different, the exact timing, usually in the evening and nighttime hours, from which they'll go ahead and let them out into the water column, synchronizing in that huge underwater event. It is a phenomenal feat watching it happen.
It is. It's something you don't forget when you see your first one. That is for sure.
That's right, definitely. And a lot of people think it is just one night, but really, it, again, as I said, hundreds of thousands of different species out there on the reef, from corals to fish to everything that needs to spawn at this time of year. And it can happen over a series of evenings for corals in particular, and also over a couple of months. So people tend to think of this happening at our mid and offshore reefs in November, but it really has a lot to do with the timing of that moon. The full moon this year, of course, is quite early, happening a couple of nights ago. So that does push many of our hard coral species to want to kind of hold off and do the next moon cycle. So they're not paying attention to the calendar like we are, and it gives them another month. So while we'll have some corals, particularly soft corals, and a few of our hard corals that we're focused on here at our aquarium facility, the bulk of them are really going to go off in a big way, probably in that early December period.
Wow.
How much caffeine have you drunk? How much Red Bull will be required for you to pull these all-nighters just staring at corals, waiting for them to give birth?
Do you have a nanny cam set up?
Oh, I wish we did. We need to get the live feed going so people can watch, and for ourselves. We are lucky, again, in that we've maybe worked with a species here that is very civilized and is spawning close to sunset. So other corals, as I said, will 10 o'clock at night, midnight, so the bundles aren't even released till then. And then what we're doing here in the aquarium is looking to capture those egg and sperm bundles and sort of support the process of fertilization. So crossing between multiple colonies to get that real nice genetic mix and develop the first coral embryos. So it's a really fragile process in those first few hours. And so we have sort of many hours following the actual release of those bundles to basically care and nurse them to their little nursery setup where they'll be for the following week.
Wow, so it's a little bit like coral IVF, is it? You're assisting their reproduction.
Well, that term I've heard a few times. I would not call it IVF in the sense of modifying nature and assisting with that actual fertilization. They're doing all of that themselves. We're purely just...
It's a breeding program, breeding in captivity.
Tank. That's right, yeah, breeding program, and allowing us to harness this event, let Mother Nature do its thing. But just like on land with a tree that puts out thousands, millions of seeds, not every single one is going to make it into a full-blown adult tree. Yeah. The same goes through this huge process where trillions of these egg and sperm bundles get released. Not all of them end up forming a fully grown adult coral. So we're just trying to harness and increase the numbers. So if we can get more of those baby corals back out to the reef, onto a reef patch, there's a lot of research going into whether that can really boost your coral cover and kind of kickstart some natural recovery following disturbances.
Okay, so corals have been spawning and repopulating themselves for countless millennia on their own. Why is it necessary for humans to help them now?
I think that's obviously we're at a really critical point here. Climate change is baked in. We have increased our sea surface temperatures, among other things, ocean acidifications, huge storm events and disturbances, that this rate of disturbance is beyond what these corals have adapted to over millennia.
Yeah.
That frequency of disturbance means they just don't get a chance to really kickstart that natural recovery in the same way. So we're still very much investigating. It's not a done deal here about how we can harness these events to help kickstart that process. It's been done at small scale. There's a lot of work by multiple groups, large government organizations, looking at how we can get it at scale to have an impact for the enormous size of a system like the Great Barrier Reef. So there's value at small scale, especially when we're looking at value for tourism operators or traditional owners, at cultural values, but we're still investigating how this could be applied to boost recovery in a big way.
It's really exciting research. Now, the Great Barrier Reef, as you mentioned, it is heating up due to climate change. The reef has suffered 2 back-to-back bleaching events last summer and the summer before. The sea temperature remained at least 1 degree above average all winter long throughout the sea surface of the reef, which doesn't bode well for the summer ahead. But do you think, you mentioned that the corals spend about 9 months developing that little bundle of eggs and sperm. So do you think last summer's bleaching or the bleaching before and those hotter winter temperatures will have any impact on the spawning this year?
I can't say for sure, and it depends on the species, so there's a lot of uncertainty. But what we do know is that stress put on corals, that there's research showing that does cause a kind of sublethal effect, which can lead to decreased production of the egg and sperm. Obviously, they're putting their energy into recovering from a stressful event. You're not likely to want to be putting that into producing extra energy and putting it into new little bundles. So it can impact. To date, from doing work, it's not at a level that's showing major concerns, at least locally, but the long term is a big question. And as we know out there on the reef, it's a patchwork of health. There's some outstanding coral just offshore here at Cairns and the broader region, doing quite well. Other areas aren't so lucky. We've looked at impacts on inshore fringing reefs from things like Cyclone Jasper over the last couple of years. And as you said, these warming waters and major bleaching events have definitely affected their reproductive output. But the patchwork nature of it is sort of a blessing in the sense that we tend to have some corals that are still doing fairly well, and our recruitment patterns are something we really need to look at and understand the long-term impact.
And it's quite a positive thing, isn't it, that the reef will talk to us every year, so it sort of gives us a little bit of an idea of how she's going to be coping or how she did cope with the past season, etc., isn't it?
That's right, yeah. And I think it's an important thing that we're able to, try to monitor that. We're working actually within our region to measure regional recruitment patterns, working with partners in tourism, working with traditional owner ranger teams and everyone to get out and look at a snapshot of recruitment within our reefs and among our reefs so we can understand how well Mother Nature is doing it on its own to help determine whether we should be intervening and supporting some of this restoration work locally.
Okay, I assume you have control over the temperatures in your tanks at the lab. Have you been keeping them at a Goldilocks temperature or one that matches those warming temperatures in the real ocean?
Yeah, that's a great question. We do try to mimic what's going on out there on the reef, especially given we've just collected these colonies. They look quite happy. They've been produced those lovely bundles that are going to be released very soon. So we do tend to mimic. So we're sitting between 27 and 28 degrees with some fluctuation as you would get on the reef with tide change and incoming flushing cooler waters compared to some of that warming water that can sit there in the lagoon, maybe in the afternoons. So we play with that fluctuation ourselves here and really try to mimic the conditions and light levels as best we can.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Perfect. Sounds like the ideal maternity ward. You're getting the utmost care. So, just finally, you mentioned the spawning school program, an excellent program where you're getting Indigenous rangers to help with the research, I understand?
Yeah, so Spawning School is in its 3rd year, which is a sort of community program that we've been very fortunate to coordinate here through JCU Tropwater, one in which we're really focused on supporting those traditional owner ranger groups from the region to build their skills and capacity, understand that sort of really practical and foundational coral biology knowledge so that as some of these restoration techniques develop, might lead to jobs, understanding just that foundational information to help monitor their sea country reefs and build opportunities for the future. Importantly, not just for the rangers, we also get the local community. We've got a community visit from Yarrabah next week to come in and just connect with elders to little ones, sort of all generations, to experience coral spawning, since it is obviously quite hard for many to observe it firsthand or to understand the full process if you're not lucky enough to be out there on those nights out on the reef.
Yeah, that's it, being able to share it with everybody.
It sounds
so special.
It sounds so special. Yeah, so magical. Connecting everyone with that life-affirming event. It's absolutely amazing work. So, Dr. Katie Chartrand, Senior Research Fellow at James Cook University's Tropwater. Best of luck with nurturing those baby corals over the next few nights. And thanks for all your amazing work. And thanks for joining us on Word on the Reef.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for the update.
Look forward to talking to you again soon.
We'll chat soon.
Sounds great. Okay, take care, guys.
Thanks.
See
Bye.
ya. And next on today's program, we're going to be learning about the magnificent world of mangroves. And here to teach us all about it is Shannon Bredeson. She's project manager at the Cairns and Far North Environment Centre, CAFNEC for short. Good morning, Shannon. We already welcomed you earlier, but welcome again to Word on the Reef.
Yep, welcome again,
Thanks for having me. Yes, great to have you on the show.
Yep.
Before we dive into mangrovey stuff, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and how you came to be involved with mangroves.
Yeah, I'd love to. So I'm originally from San Diego, California, which doesn't actually have any mangroves.
It doesn't?
No,
Okay.
no. So mangroves there's a gray mangrove that was planted there back in the 60s as part of a research project, and then it's actually an invasive species. So there's a whole eradication process after that to get rid of the gray mangroves.
That was a big mistake,
Yeah,
like the cane toad.
Yeah. So
who visits a place that doesn't naturally have mangroves and says, you know what this place needs more of?
mangroves.
People that don't know what they're doing.
Exactly.
Yep.
So it's a bit of a journey coming to learn about mangroves, because I'd only really experienced them from visiting grandparents in Florida, but I saw them and never thought much about them. But then in traveling here to Australia, I learned about the Mangrove Watch project, and I was like, well, that sounds interesting. I'll learn about mangroves. I'll volunteer on the project. And now I'm the project officer. So it's really been a journey of going from having zero knowledge of mangroves to now having to learn a lot and teach people about it. So it's been...
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's been an incredible journey.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, and I understand that you have a master's from James Cook University, is it?
Yeah, that's correct. So I came over originally to do my master's in tropical biology and conservation. My background from the States was doing a bachelor's in evolution, ecology, and biodiversity, which was more specific to animal behavior, because I was very focused on the animal behavior route as opposed to trees. But then coming here, I was learning more about the tropics in general, which was such a new area for me, being from a temperate climate. And learning about that and in being able to experience new plants, new animals, it just opened up my whole world to the beauty of the tropics and how much it really has to offer.
Amazing. So when people think of the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park, they usually think of coral, but the Marine Park is also a global hotspot for mangrove biodiversity.
Yep.
Shannon, how extensive and biodiverse are mangrove forests in the Great Barrier Reef area?
They are incredibly diverse. One of my favorite things to tell people is that the Daintree River is the most biodiverse estuary in the world, as it has about 36 species of mangroves just in that one estuary.
Whoa.
And so it's amazing to have that to boast about, and no one's corrected us yet. So
I mean, I have to admit, I would probably not be able to tell one mangrove from another, but I haven't had the correct lessons, evidently.
Well, I'll be happy to take you out to the mangroves. We can go for a walk sometime.
I would love that.
Lots of aerogard though, right?
True. Yes. Cover up.
Absolutely, yes. So I looked up some stats, and it says the Great Barrier Reef mangrove forests cover an area of more than 2,000 square kilometres and represent 18% of all mangrove area in Australia. And on top of the 36 that you mentioned at the Daintree, there's actually 44 in total mangrove species and hybrids, which is almost half of the world's total. So it's a very important part of this part of the world. But unfortunately, some people in the past thought of mangroves as nothing more than mosquito-infested swamps that should be bulldozed to make way for coastal developments. But mangroves are actually super important. So why are they so important, Shannon?
Yeah, well, Brett summed it up quite nicely in the beginning, where they're so important for stabilizing our shoreline. So when you have cyclones come through, big floods, it's having all those interconnected roots of the mangroves that help keep that soil and mud in place. Also, in relation to the reef, they're the kidneys or the janitors of the reef, where they filter about 80% of all the sediment and nutrients that's coming from the land. So instead of all that going out into the reef, it gets trapped in the mangrove systems.
And it's also a giant nursery ground too.
Yeah, most definitely.
It's up to 70%, isn't it, of reef fish and live on the coast? I actually saw some footage the other day that was just beautiful of 2 Queensland gropers. Did you see that?
Oh, yes. Shout out to our mate Pablo Cogollos, the brilliant
absolutely
photographer.
Incredible.
Yeah, so he's gone viral with his drone footage. He snuck over a mangrove and found 2 gigantic Queensland grouper.
Really?
In mating process in the mangroves.
Whoa.
Yeah, just incredible.
All right, I'll need to check that out later.
Yeah.
It's just beautiful.
Yeah.
But yeah, so tell us more about the value of mangroves. You've got the nursery value as well, right?
Yeah, so for anyone who loves seafood, so if you love eating fish, crab, prawn, you have the mangroves to thank for that. And to quote Jock McKenzie, who's our mangrove ecologist on the project, he always says if you've eaten a little one of those seafoods lately that's been caught locally, you have a little bit of mangrove in you. So we're already a little bit part of the mangroves.
Yeah, that's cool.
I love that because the crabs and things will be sort of feeding on fallen leaves and nutrients from the mangroves, and then we might eat them. So quite literally getting in that food chain with the mangrove system. And it's not just the crabs and fish in the water, they're also home to birds, some particularly large reptiles.
Yeah. Crocodilus hugest.
Have to be careful when you're exploring the mangroves.
Yeah.
Do have to be careful. But I have seen, I think are they lace monitors? I mean, they...
Mangrove monitors?
Yeah. I mean, they're not... They don't swim, but I've seen them near the wetlands.
Like crawling around. Yeah.
And of course, they protect us from storm surges. So if we were to have a tsunami or just a giant wave storm, if you've got mangroves along your coast, it's going to keep your homes safer.
And also, there being a giant carbon sink. So don't they absorb 50 times faster carbon than a forest? Yeah,
so they absorb 4 to 10 times more carbon, and they do so up to 50 times faster.
Than any forest.
Yeah, and that's all thanks to the crabs and such, because you have the mangroves that are constantly turning over their leaves because they live in such a salty environment. And then you have all these crabs that are like, oh, well, that's a free lunch. I'll eat that. And so they take all those leaves and store them down into their burrows. Whereas if you go into a rainforest, they're not turning their leaves over as often. And so if you're walking around a rainforest, you'll just see leaves everywhere because you don't have that high turnover and that storage in the ground.
Well, that makes me think of another question, which is about some of the wild and weird adaptations that mangrove trees might have to survive other than other types of trees, right? Like, how do you survive living in the ocean? If you're a tree.
That is a great question.
Especially with a bit of salt as well.
Because mangroves are very unique in that. So when you're walking around the mangroves, one of the easiest ways to tell them apart is looking at their roots. So you have the red mangroves that have those big spider-like roots, and so that helps them sit up a little bit higher in the waterway so that the trees don't drown. And they're also getting a lot of oxygen exchange through those roots. You have the gray mangroves and the apple mangroves that have more of like pencil roots, which are called snorkel roots or pneumatophores, which again, those stick up out of the water to help the tree breathe, because the soil itself doesn't have a lot of oxygen because you constantly have the tide coming in, so they need to be able to breathe through their bark in addition to their leaves and the roots.
Wow, I love that idea of snorkel roots. Like you see all the little pencil sticks sticking up. They're so important. Do they have some system to filter the liquid they need without getting salinity issues?
Well, the first thing that came to mind was a lot of people used to think that they would expel salt from their leaves, because you'll see some of the gray mangroves will have salt crystals on their leaves, especially early in the morning. But we found that that's actually a way to help the plant get water. And so in addition to the sacrificial leaves, which they pump full of salt, and those are the yellow leaves that fall off. So if you see yellow leaves on mangrove, it's not sick, it's not dying. It's just that's where all the salt's going to shed the salt through those leaves.
Well, okay, so that's an interesting adaptation. So any salt they take on, they put it into some particular sacrificial leaves and just shed those.
Yeah.
Okay, can you eat those like salty snacks?
Oh, I wouldn't recommend it.
Mango leaf chips.
Yeah.
Don't try this at home, folks.
Yeah.
Okay, so they are incredible ecosystems that perform a lot of useful services for us and for the reef and all the wildlife out there, but I guess they're probably not as extensive as they used to be. What are the threats to mangrove forests?
So one of the big threats is coastal squeeze, and so that's where, because you have these rising sea levels, the mangroves are trying to extend up the tidal area.
Move inland, basically.
Yeah, move inland. And so if you have a road or something there, then there's nowhere for the mangroves to actually go. So you have...
Why did the mangrove cross the road?
Oh, no, don't.
To get to the other side. And so if you have a road there, then it's like that acts as a barrier and they're not able to keep moving inland to adapt to this changing sea levels. And so that's one of the biggest threats that we're seeing. Other threats are such as clearing of mangroves. As you mentioned earlier, people tend to see them as bug-infested swamps. They don't want them. But actually, if you have a healthy mangrove system that has good drainage, you're not going to get as many mosquitoes as you would think. A lot of those mosquito populations are a result of not having healthy mangroves that drain correctly, having a lot of rubbish in mangroves, because then you have standing water for the mosquitoes to actually grow on. So if you want to lower the mosquito population, help the mangroves be a little bit healthier.
And I guess that squeeze would also be extra housing and industry that sort of pushing towards the coast, and then that's forcing all of that excess rainfall from the Gulf Savannah heading down, forcing it through one section, and then it's just too much for it.
Yeah. I feel so sad they're trying to make their way inland and they get blocked, you know. Poor mangroves. And all the wildlife as well. So mangroves need our protection, they need our help, but in order to protect something, first you need to study it and understand it, and that's where the Mangrove Watch program comes in. So Shannon, what is Mangrove Watch? So Mangrove Watch is a national citizen science program. It was started by Dr. Norm Duke and Jock McKenzie in 2008, and then CAFNEC took on overseeing our local chapter in 2016. So we've been going for almost 10 years, which has been really exciting, and it's designed to educate and empower people to look after our coastal wetlands. So every year, across 6 estuaries in the Great Barrier Reef region, we monitor the mangroves using the SVAM method. So that's Shoreline Video Assessment Method. And that's going out on the boat and filming the shoreline. So we go upstream, downstream, and we're able to take that footage that's collected each year and compare it to the previous year's video. So that way we can see what's changing. If mangroves have been cleared in an area, we can see when they were cleared, if they've been poisoned, if there's a big flood event that came through, we can have that point of comparison.
Right. So like an overlay type thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you mentioned you're doing it in 6 estuaries. Where are they?
So we're doing it in the Barron, East Trinity, Russell Mulgrave, Johnston, Moresby, and Hinchinbrook Channel.
Right.
So all across the wet tropics, because all the data that we collect goes into the Wet Tropics Healthy Waterways Report Card.
And of course there's people doing the same Mangrove Watch methodology in other regions of Australia as well.
So we've done a lot of piloting in our chapter here, because previously when we started in 2016 there wasn't anyone doing monitoring from Rockhampton to Princess Charlotte Bay. And so in us starting up the chapter here and seeing how it goes, it's led to informing and the creation of chapters down in Townsville and Mackay, which is being led by our partners at Earthwatch Australia.
Amazing. So that big gap along the coast of Queensland is being covered now. So we know a lot more about mangroves than we did before. And it's great knowing that if mangroves are dying in a section of the river, someone's going to notice and document it, and you'll know because you've seen what it was like before.
Exactly.
What are some of the impacts that might cause you to see a bunch of mangroves dying? You mentioned poison. Is that people deliberately trying to clear them without permission, I suppose?
Because mangroves mangroves are protected under the Fisheries Act. So when you're dealing with any sort of marine plant, it's protected under that, so they're not meant to be poisoned or cleared unless you have a specific permit for that. And so, there are times you go along the river where you'll see where they've been poisoned, and it's usually to protect the view of someone's house. Or if you're going along and there's a bunch of housing around, you might see mangroves aren't growing in front of the houses, but they're growing in between the houses. And
pretty obvious who's Has this led to any action against those places?
I know that it's been reported to fisheries, whether it's been followed up from there, not really sure. But it is something that we keep in mind when we do education. And so when we are out talking with community, talking with ranger groups, talking with volunteers, we let them know, hey, if you know the people living in here or people in these communities, share the word about why mangroves are important. Because, yeah, that view is nice, but if there's a cyclone coming, your house is right in the way of that cyclone.
Yeah, Mother Nature will have her last say.
Exactly.
Yeah, you're not the sharpest tool in the shed by doing that. It's pretty obvious, isn't it?
Well,
healthy, dead, healthy. It wasn't me, Your Honour. Yeah, come on, champ.
I don't know what happened to those mangroves. I just woke up one morning and they disappeared.
Yeah, maybe a 5-metre lizard will come up and have a crack.
Yeah, well, I think education is key, like you said. People need to learn about mangroves, and then we'll respect them and want to protect them. So what else does all that data get used for that you're collecting?
Yeah, so in addition to it going into the report card and everything, we've developed local action plans. So a lot of the feedback we were getting from volunteers was they didn't just want to watch mangroves change and see, oh, wow, they're being poisoned there. Or, oh, wow, a big flood event came through and they've been damaged. They wanted to actually do something about it. And so we developed this whole model of local action plans as a way of presenting the data back to local volunteers, to ranger groups, and saying, all right, this is what the data is telling us, our key threats and key values of this estuary. What do you know based on your local knowledge? Does that seem accurate? Is there something we're missing? And then what project ideas do you want to run that we can support you with? And so it's community-led. And we provide more of that support of connecting them with experts, contractors, helping them get funding and learn the skills so that they can be their own project leaders and project managers.
So if you had some projects involving replanting mangroves, or I think you do education stuff with it as well.
Yeah, so there's 3 main different project types that we've come across. There's education, revegetation, and rehabilitation. So down in the Russell Mulgrave catchment, we have a couple of local action plan leaders that are leading a local education program with the primary schools, and so that's teaching kids from an early age about mangroves in their own backyard. And a lot of them already know about mangroves because they love to go fishing, but it's just taking that extra level of, yeah, great for fishing. Here's also why they're important, why we should care about them. In the Barren, we've been doing more terrestrial plantings to help provide that extra protection to the mangroves along the actual shoreline, because there's an area that was previously overcleared illegally, and so we've gone back in and we've had that place surveyed so we know where the boundary lines are, and are working with the local coast care group to have that replanted. And then down in Cardwell, there's a section of foreshore that is slowly eroding away, and so we're looking at erosion control measures to help build up the mud bank there, because a lot of people tend to think about planting mangroves being the solution, but if mangroves aren't growing there, there's a reason. And so with the Cardwell example, we're looking at how we can have the mud bank actually be built back up so that mangroves will naturally come and fill in that area, because
they can't take root if it's eroding too much, is that?
Exactly. Yeah. So if you build the correct conditions, they will come.
Build it and they will come.
Exactly.
Yep,
Awesome. Okay, so salt marshes. What do you know about salt marshes, Shannon?
Yeah, well, people tend to not know as much about salt marshes as they do about mangroves.
I have to confess that I did not know about salt marshes. I mean, the name isn't really selling it, but
it just seems like a swampy marsh.
You looked straight at me as if I was going to say something, and I'm like, don't do that.
What exactly is a salt marsh, and why are they important?
Yeah, so a good way of thinking about salt marshes is a salt marsh will exist where the mangroves don't exist. So they tend to be more in the upper tidal zone where it's too salty for the mangroves. So they might look like big barren patches because you have a lot of smaller scrubs and such, but they are actually really important and still part of that whole tidal wetland system. So just like mangroves provide a carbon sink, just like mangroves help filter, salt marsh habitats do the same thing as well. And fish will still come in on a high tide and eat the mollusks and crabs that are in there as well. So they're still really important, even though they're lesser known.
Yeah, well, I don't know if I've ever really observed a natural progression from ocean to mangrove and then behind the mangrove, the next thing should be a salt marsh, because every time I've seen a mangrove, it's had an airport behind it. So it's got the airport, or it's got the esplanade, or it's got a road. But
we have a giant facility in Cairns in the city called the Aquarium that has that journey set up. Just so happens.
Nice little shameless plug there.
Well, that's I mean, if anyone wants to learn about mangroves, come and say good day, because that's how we're set up. Yep.
So mind blown to know that when you get slightly inland, the next thing inland from a mangrove is supposed to be a salt marsh.
Exactly, yeah.
And that's a part of the integrated whole of the ecosystem, which is meant to be the interconnection between the seagrass in the shallow waters, which then connects to the mangrove right along the shoreline, and then the salt marsh just in from that. And they are sort of all part of the ecosystem, and I just had no idea that the salt marsh was an important part of it, and that's why your program's incredible, because a lot of people probably didn't realise about salt marshes. So you're monitoring them as well, right?
Yeah, so every year we go out and we monitor 10 sites around the Cairns area. There's actually a lovely site at the Jack Barnes Boardwalk, and so if you're looking at the Jack Barnes Boardwalk with your back to the road, just take the left side, and that opens directly into the salt marsh there. So it's a big open patch, so you might walk by and not think there's anything there, but that is salt marsh. And so we take volunteers and ranger groups out there to record what they see of the salt marsh. So what they see as valuable, what they see as threats. Usually one of the main threats tends to be it's a major dumping ground. So we've seen everything from like cars that have been dumped there, mattresses. So if anyone wants to have a nice sleep in the mangroves, there's mattresses there.
Sleep with the fishes.
Sleep with the fishes. You will be if you go in there.
Yeah. So you see everything in the salt marsh. Because again, since it's surrounded by mangroves, part of its function too is anything that is getting run off from the land goes through the salt marsh first and then into the mangroves. So it's great to take the community out there, because we're surrounded by salt marsh here in Cairns, but people just don't realize it until they're actually out there in the salt marsh.
You just think it's vacant land, but
exactly.
Does there much wildlife that calls it home?
Yeah, so you have a lot of migratory birds and native birds that use salt marsh as a feeding ground. So we've seen jabiroos out at salt marsh.
Wow.
You're always going to see birds there. Those who do a lot of birding, they'll usually look for salt marsh as a spot to sit and chill. Just have to make sure you cover up well because of the midges, but it's definitely worth it.
Monitoring mangroves is an interesting activity where you are able to see a huge array of wildlife. So
huge being the ultimate word.
So you must have seen some awesome things during your monitoring. What are some of the coolest things you've seen?
Well, I think everyone's been beating around the bush a little bit, wanting to know about crocodiles.
Yes. So our international listeners, just brace yourself, all right? This is normal life for us.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, every time I've gone out on a mangrove monitoring trip, I've always seen a crocodile.
Nice.
Wow. So, that's good.
Yeah,
that's good.
Yeah, so it's been amazing. I remember going out on a trip and one of the volunteers was like, "You're not going to see a crocodile while I'm on board. I'm like the bad luck charm that happens to scare them all away, because I've never seen a crocodile anytime I've been out on a boat. People have told me that they're meant to be here. They're not here." We saw 2 crocodiles on that trip.
You broke a curse for that person.
So if you want to see crocodiles, you got to come along with Mangrove Watch Monitoring.
Excuse me. We live here.
That's awesome. That's a big draw card for people to get involved, because honestly,
definitely.
I'm ashamed to say I lived in Cairns for over 10 years before I saw a crocodile in the wild.
Oh,
but,
really?
I mean, it's because I don't do mangrove stuff. I go out to the reef, or I'm like further inland in the creeks and rainforests is where I hang out. But if you have access to a boat to go up the mangrove, you'll be able to see one in the wild.
I used to live near the mangroves down in White Rock.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Lovely.
Yeah, woke up in the morning to something knocking on the back gate, and it was a 4.5 metre croc. It crawled out.
I believe it.
Yeah, and he was down right at the back of White Rock there through those mangroves. Yeah, some big lizards there, so I just looked at him through the window and said, "You can go, mate."
Yeah, don't let your kids out of your sight if you live there.
Nah.
Don't let them go down the end of the road.
No, not a good idea.
Okay, and what about some of the other animals? I mean, you told me a funny story about people getting chased by wasps.
Yeah, so you do have to be careful with wasps when you're in the mangroves. There's one day where we were doing a mangrove ID training, so just walking around the mangroves. I was more so on the outskirts, kind of getting ready to go back to the car, and I heard a little bit of a commotion behind me, and the guys lads were kind of like making a bit of noise. I was like, "Oh, like, what's up?" I'm like, it doesn't sound like they're panicking too much, so not a crocodile, but what's going on? And so they came like kind of running out laughing and everything. I was like, what happened? And they're like, we were walking and we hit this leaf and a bunch of bugs just came like buzzing out of nowhere, and we thought they were wasps, so we just started smacking and running and just got out of there. And they were just these really lovely jewel beetles that happened to congregate underneath the leaves. And so they're really beautiful and they're super chill. They're not going to hurt you. But when you have wasps on the brain and run into them, it can cause you to panic for a little bit.
I've been on the other end of a wasp sting a few times. It's not pretty.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was a case of mistaken identity.
Yeah.
All right. So as we've probably clued everyone up to, mangroves can be a habitat for things like crocodiles and mosquitoes. So you have to approach with care. But
snorkeling not allowed, please.
No snorkeling, please.
Yep.
But if there are any locals or visitors to the Cairns region who want to see the incredible wildlife biodiversity of mangroves and salt marshes, where can they head to safely enjoy and appreciate these ecosystems and maybe do some bird watching and spot some wildlife?
Yeah, so I'd highly recommend going to Jack Barnes Boardwalk. It's really close to the airport there, and you can walk through, and it starts out in more of your red mangrove forest, but then as you walk through, you start seeing more of what starts with your yellows, and then as you walk through, it goes into your reds and orange mangroves, and so you're able to see just such a big biodiversity of mangroves just in this nice little safe boardwalk to walk on. And you can see birds. You're not going to see crocodiles, so you don't need to worry about that, but it's a lovely spot to walk, and you also have your salt marsh habitat there.
Yeah, it's a raised boardwalk, so you don't have to worry about stepping on any submerged crocodile-shaped logs.
Yeah.
And just wear your mosquito repellent or cover up.
Yeah, I usually cover up. It's what I find is the easiest. And make sure you have gloves for your hands. People tend to forget that hands can be bitten as well.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I love the Jack Barnes Boardwalk. You could just be 100 metres away from the road and you feel like you've travelled back a million years in time.
The mangroves are so tall up there.
Primeval. Yeah, actually, you can notice the different habitats. There's sort of like the more shrubby mangroves, and then you get into this area where the mangroves are literally gigantic, towering above your head. It's so primeval.
Yeah, definitely glad that we still have that as a resource. It's originally meant to be because it was kind of a little bit broken, they're going to remove it, but then we're able to campaign for them to take that money that they would have used to remove it to actually restore it. So yeah, it's a great educational resource. We use it all the time with school groups, volunteers, rangers.
Yeah, and I also love Katana wetlands. Yeah. It's not just mangrove, it's different wetland types. But the last time I went for a walk at Katana wetlands, totally covered head to toe to protect from mosquitoes. But we saw some type of monitor lizards. We saw a crocodile.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
A small little baby one. Well, juvenile. And just tons of different birds and flowers and trees. It's so beautiful. Yeah. Check out Katana Wetlands, everyone.
And Cairns Botanic Gardens as well.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that's also a good spot for mangroves near Edge Hill.
Yeah, well, I live in Edge Hill, so I've done that walk through there a lot of times. It's beautiful.
But the Katana Wetlands has been newly renovated and
that's out near
reopened.
Yorkies, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Dunn Road.
Dunn Road, yeah.
There's a few free things for people to fill a few hours of wandering wistfully in the wilderness. So if people are keen to help with helping mangroves and joining your activities, Shannon, where can they head for more info? Are you onboarding any more volunteers anytime soon?
So at the moment, since we're entering the wet season, we're in the process of wrapping up the project for the year and everything. But yeah, starting dry season is usually when mangrove things are all the go-ahead. But yeah, to keep across what we're doing and when we're going out, you can follow us on our socials at Cairns and Far North Environment Centre, and also have a look at our website at cafnec.org.au under What We Do Mangrove Watch, and that's where I have all the information about what we do for mangrove monitoring, salt marsh monitoring, and videos explaining what we do if you want more info.
Amazing. Now we've just got 3 minutes left of the show. So is there anything else you wanted to say, Shannon? Otherwise, Brett and I will have to think of a joke.
well, I'll think of something quickly then to avoid the dad puns. So you mentioned jokingly about eating the mangrove leaves, which I wouldn't recommend. But in salt marsh habitat, there's a plant called samphire, which in a lot of the islands is used for cooking with fish because it's like a nice salty succulent. And so it keeps your fish nice and moist and salty. So don't eat it here because it is protected as a marine plant, but you might find it like overseas in a store or something. And so it is a food source as well.
Maybe we should start cultivating it, but it probably needs really specific conditions.
Yeah, it can be quite tough to grow mangroves and salt marsh plants in a nursery, And
it's also a good time to remind people that interconnection from the Gulf Savannah to the reef that will flow through there. Please, 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 we beg of you, if you're going to go camping, take all your your stuff with you. I mean, I love camping, and there's nothing worse than being stuck in a four-wheel drive with 3 screaming kids for 9 hours. You get to your favourite camp spot and someone's taken, 14 dogs and a kitchen sink home and left all their rubbish behind. Please take everything with you, because it's not going to stay there. It's going to flow down through that connection, down through the mangroves and out to the reef. So please make sure that you take everything with you. Doesn't matter how far inland you go, and that'll protect the mangroves, the reef, the rainforest, everything. So please do the right thing.
Yeah, well, we go out into nature because we love it, not to trash it. So
that's right.
Yeah, take all your trash home when you are out anywhere in the wilderness.
That's how mangroves need help. They don't need a VB can.
Shannon Bredeson, thanks for all your amazing work looking after the mangroves, and thanks for joining us on the show today.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
And thanks to all our listeners for joining us on Word on the Reef. I'm Tanya Murphy. My co-host is Brett Goodban, and we'll be back next Friday at 10 a.m. on Cairns FM 89.1 with more awesome marine science adventures. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at instagram.com/Word on the Reef podcast. That's all for this week.
Have a fantastic week.
Best fishes.
Bye.
See you next time.